Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with New York City trumpet player, singer, songwriter, and instigator Bria Skonberg. She just got signed on to Sony and is moving on to bigger and better things. And in June of 2016's issue of DownBeat, she was called one of the top 25 rising stars in the jazz world. Her last album was 2014's In Your Own, and she discussed that and how a girl from Chilliwack, British Columbia, would go on to a big career in jazz. She talked about her formal education at Capilano University in Canada and explained how she has been characterized as expanding the vocabulary and traditions of Louis Armstrong and Sidney Bechet with worldly rhythms and modern jazz variants. Bria is very active all over the globe and has great things happening in her world. So get to know her and dig this interview, my friends.
Hey, thank you for taking a little time out for me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
You know, I know on your website you're pretty good about putting up your, tour dates and what's going on with you, but in your own words, give me a snapshot of activity that's going on with you lately.
You know, every time you see somebody performing, we're planning 6 months, over a year in advance. So, I'm really trying to project what's going on. I don't know if you know this, but I didn't put it on my website yet, but I just signed a big contract with Sony Records. Yeah, and which is really super exciting. But, that's been in the works for 6 or 7 months, and patience of waiting and seeing and all that. So now it's cool because some bigger blocks are starting to move. Just plans for next year in a way too. So I guess you could just say, we're trying to stay, 6 months, years ahead of yourself.
Yeah. Well, it has to feel good to have that kind of clout behind you now and to see things moving forward.
Yeah, no, incredibly. Every step of things, somebody lends their support. It's just encouraging. It just kind of reaffirms, okay, I am on the right path. And a lot of times in this career, you have to kind of double check that.
Well, let me ask you this. So, speaking of a new label, your latest album, 2014's In Your Own, talk to me a little bit about how you felt about that album and what album might be in the works next, especially with this newest development in your life.
In Your Own was a really, I think every album I've put out so far has been a real snapshot of where I was at that time, and when working through a lot of ideas. I was really lucky that Random Act Records, the people that put out the last 2 albums, they gave me so much freedom and nurtured ideas that I had, even if they seemed a little crazy at the time. And I wanted to put the distortion on the trumpet and really delve into a little bit more singer-songwriter type stuff. That's what the last album was for me. Took some songwriting classes, and some of the songs are a little bit different form-wise than like your average jazz tunes or such. So a lot of them have been really exploration. The last album, again, was kind of a stamp on it where, I just wanted to be unapologetic for the things that I wanted to try and do. And then as far as moving forward, the album that's coming out and hopefully some people I've just been about taking the best elements of those to date, or the ideas that have kind of stuck around over time and really resonated with myself, and creating more music that really owns that sound, it's a process along with finding your own voice and then finding that voice on 2 instruments and then where they sit aside.
Yeah, there's a quote from Miles Davis that says that it takes a long, long time to find that inner voice within you. And you think that immediately when you hear an album, that's the voice, but it's all an evolution. There's always more to learn.
We're always growing.
You would hope, yeah. So before we depart the present and move to Chilliwack, British Columbia, I'm going to ask you, probably something that's been on your radar is that you were recognized as one of the top 25 rising jazz artists in DownBeat. What does that feel like? What has the afterglow been? Just kind of talk to me a little bit about that kind of designation. It's a huge, it's a really big honor and, getting total validation that the main book teams. DownBeat's been around forever. I think Louis Armstrong's been on it. Everybody's been on DownBeat, so for them to kind of recognize, or at least be on their radar, like you say, it's really exciting. At the same time, it just kind of
to me it translates to like, okay, now I better live up to this. I gotta,
Yeah.
you gotta work twice as hard, and it keeps me really accountable, for the quality of my work and making sure I practice and write and do what I need to do. So, in a way, when they say for the future, that's really encouraging.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: how does a girl from Chilliwack, British Columbia, grow up to become a big, major jazz artist?
Well, my hometown had a jazz festival, and they did a really good job of incorporating the youth, like the public school music programs and performing and all of that. So I got exposed to live jazz at a young age. And I think that's just really what makes all the difference, being able to see people play it, being able to hear the music, being able to feel the music live. And the music of that festival kind of centered around a lot of the roots of jazz and the New Orleans style ensemble playing that had a lot of interaction and really fun. The people that played it were really entertaining, people of all ages. So I just got drawn in, and there was really a culture about it. I didn't really question that it was that strange still, the farther I get away from it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Prior to getting involved with your native instrument now, which is the trumpet, you took piano lessons early on. Did you always feel like there was a music bug that was in you that was going to stay forever and that needed to get out?
Well, I think that, like most young girls, it was probably singing that I most wanted to get out. Just watching different idols of mine that I enjoyed. I really wanted to perform, to have that role and play for people. I did. Also, my grandma played piano when I was a lot of kids, but she played totally by ear. But she would play, and my brother would play fiddle, fiddle. So again, the music was just kind of always around. I mean, I wanted to get it out, but I wasn't never really stifled. My parents were very encouraging. We grew up. I grew up on a kind of a 2-acre plot of land where we could make some real noise.
Let me ask you this: was there an album when you were growing up that kind of blew your doors down? What was one of the first jazz albums you listened to that really did something for you?
At that time, a lot of jazz compilations and such were coming out, and those are the ones that probably influenced me the most. I mean, even stuff like Louis Armstrong's Greatest Hits, these are the ones that my teachers would give me. I guess then you just kind of got the hits, but I listened to those a lot. There was a good Duke Ellington, Clark Terry, playing Duke Ellington, which I really gravitated towards. Well, but I listened to so many different kinds of music. I think my favorite album at that time was probably Tragic Kingdom by No Doubt. Yeah. And,
yeah.
Lauryn Hill, the Mystification of Lauryn Hill, and I also, I had a Peachy tape that I really loved, and I liked, I liked a lot of different kinds of music, punk and ska, and those ones probably resonated the most with me at that time. But otherwise, different kind of compilations, even mixtapes that we would make. I had some big jam mixes that no specific album I'm sorry to say, but it just kind of, I guess, fostered my love.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you this: how did you land on the trumpet? How did that become your instrument?
My dad played back in high school. He just, when it came to the time to choose instruments for 7th grade band, he could play trumpet, and I said, okay. Because we owned one.
Yeah. Obviously, the major classroom of learning jazz is going out in the world and playing. But in a formal environment at Capilano University in Canada, what did you learn in a formal environment that helped you so much in being a musician?
I think there I really learned the discipline. I didn't have a private teacher until I got to college. And so, it was really finally somebody was giving me specific lessons to work on, and I was just being, again, in a community, a culture of people of younger people that were all totally into the same thing and also, challenging at the same time. Most people that go to music college, they come out and they're like, oh, I had the solo in the jazz band, I got this award, that award, and then it's like, okay, we're all in the same boat. It's just you get into that, you get immersed in a more challenging culture.
Yeah. So you have been described, your way of playing has been described this way. You were expanding the vocabulary and traditions of Louis Armstrong, Sidney Bechet, with worldly rhythms and modern jazz variants. Explain that.
It's kind of hard to explain because the basis of my my education and my musical sensibilities are New Orleans jazz and the blues, and at the same time, like you said, like I have been trained in more modern jazz styles, or specifically jazz harmonies, but also I love adding percussion into the mix. Nowadays, my drummer sits on a Brazilian cajon, and he's got tambourines, shakers at the same time. So and these are just accessing a bunch of sounds that I'm interested in. Yeah.
So you have been very comfortable in a leader role. You've been very comfortable in a side person role, so to speak. You were the leader of Vancouver's Bria's Hot Five, the Big Bang Jazz Band, and then you were a part of the Dow Richards Band or orchestra, I should say. What do you feel more at home with, or do you feel at home with both of them in a different way, being a leader or being in kind of a side gig?
Yep. I mean, I like to be in both positions because you can learn so much in both of them, and being a band leader will make you a better side person. That's for sure, because I can empathize with the band leaders in that situation. But also, yeah, I mean, there's a certain, I like a lot of freedom. I like to kind of direct again where I want the music to go and pick the people that I play with. At the same time, I like to be in situations where I don't know what to expect. It's good, like the Dow Richards Orchestra. That was really a show band, and I kind of really understood how to pace the show and just perform on a higher level. And there's there's not as much stress. I don't have to figure out how to get everybody in the van to the gig. I don't have to create the charts and write the music.
Yeah.
We're the happiest, the busiest band leaders are a lot of times the happiest side people.
I watched the Vince Giordano brought his documentary to Kansas City about a month ago, and and he was talking about in that documentary about, when he goes to these gigs, how he has to get everybody together. He started getting my heart racing, and I had nothing to do. I was just watching the movie.
Yeah.
I was oh, my God,
Both he and I play often in this band on Wednesdays at Birdland called the Louis Armstrong Eternity Band, and it's led by the tuba player, and Vince plays banjo in the band. But I think we both love it because there's no rehearsal. We just play tunes. It's always engaging and interesting and fun. But it's such a low-stress environment. It's so great.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that he has ways of kind of counteracting all of that leadership. Yeah, Vince is like the jazz energizer bunny. I mean, I don't know how he does it. He's incredible. He's a force, man. He's just a force.
Yeah, I would say he's a great inspiration and almost a mentor in some ways.
Yeah, without a doubt. So talk to me a little bit about being the co-founder of the all-female group, Mighty Aphrodite Jazz Band. What has that experience been like? What was that group like? Talk to me a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, that group was started in 2004. My best friend and I, Claire, we just loved playing together, and, we had met some other super, talented young females along the way that we thought would be a great fit for that, too. We just thought it'd be fun and funny to kind of get more people in our age range together to play the music, and we were a really hard-swinging band, and we did a lot of great gigs, but we haven't played pretty much since I moved to New York. To be honest, it was kind of my choices for moving on and living into some new territory. So we haven't played this for 4 or 5 years, although we never officially disbanded. But we're still, last week I played a gig when I go to the West Coast. The drummer's out there. I'll use her on gigs. The trombone player lives in New York. We play together sometimes. So we're still all good friends. It had its heyday.
Let me ask you this: you're very prolific. You've been around as far as going to jazz festivals and touring North America, Europe, China, Japan, Canada. How does travel enhance or affect the way that you make and present your music?
I pick up sounds everywhere I go, and experiences, and it really just comes down. I think music making for me and enjoying music and all that just comes down to people. Meeting people and being around new people and everything that you experience when traveling, from the camaraderie to the food.
Yeah.
That sneaks, I think that finds its way into the music.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this: speaking of travel, you made a big journey from Canada down to New York City in 2010. Was that a culture shock? What was that move like for you to kind of come from Canada into the biggest hotbed of jazz in the world?
Well, it was more gradual than that. I graduated college in 2006, and I spent the next 4 years traveling around the world and playing a lot of festivals, like you said, meeting a lot of different kinds of people, and just kind of trying to figure out where my next move would be. I did a recording. I did a couple of tours around the outskirts in New York in 2008 and 2009, and ultimately realized I had more friends on the East Coast that I could tap into. So yeah, when I made the move, and then I made 2 more kind of dive bomb trips just to kind of get in and integrate it in the scene, which is the way to do it. Like I think people, they know that, moving to New York is hard. Sure, and I probably wouldn't have done it totally cold, like without knowing anybody. And even when I knew I was moving, I had about a 6-month headway to put the word out and gain some work. So it wasn't so bad. It wasn't such a culture shock. And I knew, I was just so ready for something different at that point. I jumped right in.
Well, obviously things worked out. You performed with big shots like Bucky Pizzarelli, Howard Allen, Wycliffe Gordon. What's it been like to share the stage, especially at younger parts of your jazz existence? What did you learn from people that had all this mileage and clout in their lives?
Bucky, I remember sitting on a bus with Bucky. We had both flown into the Seattle airport. We're taking a trip out to somewhere in the little islands over in Washington State. And I was surprised because he just said, I don't know, he's like, bus is the best way to travel. Yeah, I really like being on the bus. And he's like 84 years old at this time, saying, the bus isn't so bad. Like, saying what he likes about traveling or this and that. And he's so easygoing. He's so just like, I guess when you had that mileage, like you said, and also, just experienced a lot, been through everything probably, he just kind of rolls with it.
Yeah.
And I think where I've kind of, we got the balance, if you can achieve balance, that's kind of the difficult part for a lot of musicians. It's just, you don't get too high, don't get too low. One way or another, something will happen. With travel plans especially, nothing never happens. There's a lot of kind of chaotic situations that can arise, but to keep a cool level head and keep going.
I always say that those older jazz cats represent what I consider the Jazz Jedi Council, like this, hallowed group of a circle of people that just have so much experience that nothing phases them, and they're always ready to roll. So
that's it. Yeah. That's really it. It's only the experience has given me the confidence and strength and all that to move, to keep going forward. And even as I get this huge opportunity, Sony and so on, these are things that maybe I wanted 10 years ago, but I realize now that I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to understand or just to emotionally handle what is all involved. So, and that's kind of in the culture these days, a lot of people get that success really quickly, and it can be really damaging. So and to be in a position where you're confident to accept the responsibilities and the performances and such, but also have the ability to look back and be really grateful and kind of pay, give credit to all the people that have helped you get to this place. So you get another perspective, you're older and, it's more fulfilling that way.
There's a couple things I kind of want to take from what you just said there. First of all, getting awards and getting accolades, you've gotten them over your life. The CBC Jazz Award of Merit 2006, 2007, the Kobe Jazz Street Award. There's been a lot of awards that you've won. So my question is this. I don't want to know what your favorite one is. I want to know which one you got that blindsided you, where you were like, wow, I just didn't expect that, and right on.
Let's see. Last year, I was given there's a Jazz at Lincoln Center gives what they call the Swing Award.
Yeah.
And it was only maybe the third year in or something. But they kind of give it to, I believe, up-and-coming people that are making a difference in their own community, not just musically, but in a lot of different ways. And when I got that recognition, I was really surprised. Also, probably because I moved to New York, but a lot of the players around here that are younger, I mean, they come from they go to Juilliard and they go to Manhattan School of Music, and they're incredible little monster machines of playing, and I kind of just showed up and and went for it. So to get that recognition from such a huge institution like Jazz at Lincoln Center and all the things they do was really encouraging. And I've since done quite a bit of work with them and for them. And, yeah, I think that one felt pretty good. And it just kind of came out of left field. So,
Right on.
yeah.
Right on. Yeah, that's cool. So, and you did also mention, the people that have influenced you and teachers up to this point. Tell me what teachers' advice that you got that really still reverberates with you, something that kind of you remember on a regular basis.
But the first thing that comes to mind is in the first 6 months, I was lucky. I met Lou Soloff, the trumpet player, and he said, there's always going to be somebody who plays faster. There's going to be somebody who plays higher. And a place like New York, the only place you have survival, is just figuring out what you have that nobody else has. It's just, owning it. And, he used to say, like we said, really focus on what makes you unique. Yeah, I know. I think, again, I had this, I stumbled by the wayside on this big education in the roots of jazz, Louis Armstrong, New Orleans style jazz. And I didn't expect when I came to New York that I would be playing so much of it. I kind of came to grow and expand, and I have done that. It has been a little bit of what sets me apart from a lot of the other these players of this generation so far, having that knowledge. But, I think people are coming around to it. Yeah, there seems to be a bit of a renaissance, revival of, we're calling it hot jazz, so.
Yeah,
hot jazz activity.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, speaking of that hot jazz activity, we're talking about Louis Armstrong, Sidney Bechet. There's been a lot of names that have been brought up that have been influential for you that you've listened to. So if we could get into a time machine and go, and you could see a show anywhere, where would you go and who would you want to see?
I mean, it would have to be Louis. And, I mean, the one that comes to mind is not anywhere where I should be because, Louis Armstrong, he was an incredible musician, and all-around humanitarian, and I've just heard the story that there was a concert he did in Africa years ago, but the two of the countries in Africa were at war, but they literally called a ceasefire so that both sides could watch the Louis Armstrong concert. Like,
wow.
Can you imagine in the Middle East if two countries stopped fighting to watch a concert?
That's profound.
It's incredibly profound, and so.
Yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't be there, but that just comes to mind as the most incredible concert I've ever heard of.
That's a great story. I've never heard that. I mean, and they always say, if we had music is the grand equalizer in life. If we had more of it, people would be happier. But that's proof in the pudding. That's the metaphor at work.
Yeah.
But Louis Armstrong stopped a war. How do you top that?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is the best time machine answer I've ever got.
Yeah.
This is just a very simple question, but I think it kind of gets to the core of a jazz musician. Why do you love jazz?
What came to mind the other day when I was playing, it's like the closest I can get to flying.
That's very cool. Let me ask you this. What is the nicest thing a fan has ever said to you?
I only have to think about it because I've just been blessed with so many extremely nice people. I mean, sometimes it's not what they say, it's what they don't say. In that, there have been times where I just basically stand there and hold hands and look at somebody while they're on the verge of tears.
Yeah.
They're having a moment. Something the music did either brought them to a place that they have been, or they want to go, or they're working through something, or that kind of thing. And so I think sometimes the meetings that I've had where it can't be put into words are the ones with the most weight. All I say is I say thank you, they say thank you.
Yeah,
that's all.
That's cool. So, do you remember the first time you gave your autograph out?
I don't know if I can. I mean, the first album, my band, that was the Big Bang Jazz Band, was originally the 51st Date, and we put out our first CD in 2001. So it would probably be around that.
Yeah.
When we started signing things, yeah. So, 15 years ago, 16 years ago.
Yeah, it's weird. I was thinking the other day about 9/11. I was like, man, that's been 15 years ago. How did that happen? It's just, time just totally flies. So, yeah, there's no way you can Rolodex all of the things that happen.
I will say it did take me a couple of years when finally I clued into signing. This is going to be a thing. And so then I practiced my signature.
Very cool. Very cool.
You have to do that.
Yeah, well, I thought I was going to be a baseball player as a kid, so I did it on, the bad baseball cards.
Yeah.
No one can read what I say now.
Yeah.
And now my son mimics what I do, so we both have illegible signatures, so it's good.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. It's my final question. Everyone has a version of who you are. They have a perception of who you are, your family, your friends, your business associates, those that you play for in the crowd. But when you wake up in the morning, who do you think you are?
You know, on a good day, which is most days, I think I have the same sort of spirit that I did when I was 13, 14 years old.
Nice.
I think, you know, I'm excited about what's coming up. You know, a little silly. Definitely.
Nice.
I definitely love some silliness, but also kind of, you know, full of energy and excited by the things that I don't know, you know.
Right on. That's a great answer.
Yeah.
Perfect, Bria. Thanks again. And hey, good luck with Sony. I love the music and continued success.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Canada, New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Bria for her time, her honesty, and her stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store, or always visit the neonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
Neon Jazz.